Good evening and welcome to the RTM committee presentations on June 18th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is a reappointment to the Ethics Commission. Marguerite Toth. You can come forward to the table in front of us. Just very briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll open it up to questions if there are any.
There are a few faces here I recognize. I've been out of the town clerk position for so long, probably most of you don't even know I was there.
If you could please speak into the microphone. Thanks.
The first job I had in the town was working for Alex's mother.
I think you have to turn on the microphone by holding down a button.
Make sure there's
Not a
green.
button, huh?
Are these the green ones?
Who knows how to work this thing?
It's on.
Can you now? Okay, all right, I'll go backwards. The first job I had in town was working for the probate judge, who was John Shannon. And that year, Jackie Durrell ran for office. First time, first selectman, and of course she won. And after I was downstairs working the probate court for about 6 or 8 months, Jackie said, would you come up and work for me? And I said, sure, why not? So I was there for 5 years, worked out very well. And finally, in 1989, she asked, would I run for town clerk? And with her, I think I would have done just about anything. And I did, and won. And I was there until, let's see, 2005, when I finally decided time to retire. Does anybody have any
Thank you.
questions?
How long have you served on the commission?
I'm sorry?
How long have you served on the
I
Ethics
have
Commission?
a year.
A
I
year.
replaced someone.
Does anyone have any questions for this reappointment? Seeing none, thank you for coming tonight. You don't have to appear on Monday.
I thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Alex Trembicki for the Ethics Commission.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Alex Trembicki. I've lived in Fairfield for 30 some odd years. I think if you had my resume, I've served on the RTM, the Charter Revision Commission. I'm an attorney. I practice in Westport. I've not been involved actively in town in the last few years, and the first selectman reached out and suggested this might be a good place for me to dip my toe back in the water. So I hope you look favorably on my application.
Any questions for this appointment to the Ethics Commission? Seeing none, thanks for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jim Quinn, reappointment to the Fair TV Commission.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Quinn. I've been a resident of this town since 1974, give or take. I am an attorney with the state of Connecticut. I run the both Milford and Derby courthouses. I've been on the Fair TV committee for the last 3 years. My term runs up this summer. It has been my pleasure to volunteer and give back to this town. I like to continue to do so. Even my father's here, Tom Quinn, who is going to make me do this as long as I can. I'm sorry, his mic is off, so.
Just
as well.
Here's some for you.
Any questions from members of the body? Seeing none, thanks for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Next, we have Sue Strelzer for the Fair TV Commission. No. Not here. Right. Next, we have Misty Byer for the Solid Waste and Recycling Commission. Good evening.
Hi, am I supposed to?
Yeah, use the microphone.
Hi, I'm Misty Byer, and I actually was born in Fairfield, but I've lived a lot out west. Came back to Fairfield and started the Forestry Committee in 2005. Have been very active in many different organizations in Fairfield, but I do feel very strong. I feel very concerned about our recycling and solid waste, and I am looking forward to serving on this commission because I think it's one of our biggest challenges. So I actually was on the Solid Waste Commission, Recycling Solid Waste Commission, I think like 20 years ago, and then I moved. So I'd like to get back on it and learn all I can about what's going on.
Okay. Any questions from members of the body? Seeing none, thanks for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday.
Thanks.
Next, we have the Mill Hill Building Committee. We'll start with Harry Ackley. Not here. Jeremy Budzane.
Hi, so Jeremy Budzian moved to Fairfield in 2015. I have one child that's at Mill Hill, another one on the way, and as a partner at PwC, an accountant, CPA, just want to make sure we're obviously smart with the money that we spend on the project, and just want to contribute in that regard. So happy to take any questions or any.
Questions from our members? Seeing none, thanks for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday.
Okay.
Next is Hector Gillian. Next, Jason Lee.
Hi, I'm Jason Lee. Currently I'm the vice chair of the Holland Hill Building Committee. Know a lot of faces, a former member of the RTM, and looking forward to doing the Mill Hill building. I think the experience I got from Holland Hill definitely helps out in this time. So,
Thanks. Questions for Jason? Seeing none, thanks. Oh, Representative Herron.
just
Hi, Doreen Herron, District 9. I was just curious if you think that you can do this concurrently with Holland Hill. I see a few members are on this committee are looking to be on this committee as well. If you think you can handle it when Holland Hill's still pretty early in the process.
yes, actually, because the ground's broken, and we're going to make sure the dates, our meeting dates, don't conflict with each other if we're all nominated, approved on the committee. So we don't think there'll be a problem at all, or I don't think there'll be a problem. The construction has just started, so that's a part of a two-year plan, so should be no problem.
Further questions? Seeing none, thanks for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday. Heather Nokta. Not here. Tom Quinn.
Hi, I'm Tom Quinn. I've been here a couple of times. You're probably sick of seeing me. I was the chair on Riverfield School Building Committee, and I'm the current chair on Holland Hill. And to answer your question very directly, there will be no problem. We can handle both Holland Hill and Mill Hill, the three members that are crossing over. Okay, we're in good shape, on target, on budget for Holland Hill, and we came up with $200,000 that we didn't spend on Riverfield. So, okay, we're getting to learn how to do this. So,
Any questions? Seeing none, thanks for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday. Norman
Thank you.
Roberts.
Hi, good evening. Norm Roberts, moved to Fairfield in 2013. Have two kids in Mill Hill, or one. Second one will be there next year. One's just finishing first grade, and a third that will be there hopefully in a couple of years. Just looking to give back to the community.
Any questions from our members? Representative Gerber.
Actually, is this on? Yeah. It's actually more for you, Phil. Can we get sort of a, before the meeting, maybe sometime this week, get a list of how many of the parents or the committee members are parents of children in Mill Hill? And the reason, myself and Representative Herron, I think for the Sherman committee, we raised the concern that it's not always, at least in my opinion, it's not always the best form, maybe, to have a majority of members that are parents, because we want to make sure that we're looking at the interests of the town equally as the interests of the local community, because there's both, we have a larger structural space issue in town, as well as we have major structural issues with Mill Hill, so we need to make sure that they're balanced. So I guess I would ask you, have you seen the charge yet? Does the committee have a sense of what the charge for the Mill Hill Building Committee is at this point?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Okay, so I think there's certain things that, I think it hasn't been approved yet necessarily, but there is a form for it. There was a lot of discussion, I think, at the last meeting about, the neighbors don't want traffic and this and that. And, there are local issues that if it would concern me to some extent that if we're thinking locally and not thinking about structurally, and we're able to outweigh some of the structural issues in town with local concerns, that to me is not a very good check and balance system for a school building committee. And I was okay with it with Sherman, because Sherman is like the final stages, a very limited project. This is a big project, and there's been a lot of discussion about, do we want a 504? I've heard, parents I've seen on Facebook, oh, we don't want a 504, that kind of thing. That concerns me a little bit. So I think we need to have this discussion maybe either before, or during the next, during the meeting next week to get a sense of how this committee was constructed, and what the composition of the members is.
So we can certainly get the information on whether proposed appointments to the committee have children in the school system. Further questions or comments? Representative Herron?
Hi, yes, I agree with Mr. Gerber, and this is no reflection on you as a volunteer. This is a broader.
Mr. Moderator, point of information, point of process. We're discussing individuals and their qualifications for whether or not they should be on the board. The discussion that Representatives Gerber and Herron are leading us down are one of the total composition of the committee. If we could save this conversation for after we've heard from everyone, rather than while we're having individual applicants sit here, I think that would be better form. I don't think that we want to have the gentleman sitting in the seat thinking that we're picking on him. There's plenty of parents who are about to come for us. This is a broader discussion. It's not an individual question discussion.
So I agree. I think that's an appropriate suggestion. So if there are any further questions for the proposed appointment in front of us, we can take those. We can defer the discussion until after.
Can you provide some clarity as to when we would have that discussion?
We can discuss it right now after we have all of our...
After this gentleman, because obviously Representative Iacono is correct. That has nothing to do with this.
I mean, it relates to all of the members concurrently. So, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming. You don't have to appear on Monday.
I don't think he'll be coming.
Andrew Sheriff? Okay. So everyone knows Melanie Ruggieri. I believe I sent an email around. She's away on vacation this week. She's offered to talk to individual members before the meeting. I provided her kind of information if everyone wants to take advantage of that. I'll now open up a discussion on all of the members collectively, not reflective of any one member. So if anyone has any further comments, Representative Herron.
Thank you. I just agree with Mr. Gerber. When I said the comments before for Sherman, it was just from past practice, having followed other building committees, particularly school committees, Fairfield Woods, Ludlow. I've been following the process for a while, and I don't recall there being that many parents on these committees. Usually there was one representative that had kids that were currently there. Maybe there's a little more for like a Ludlow that has a broader base of residents, but I think for the elementary school, I'm concerned when there's a large majority of volunteers who are parents of particularly young children in the school. Thank you.
Further comments? Representative Bove?
Oh, sorry.
Oh my God. Careful.
Hello? Okay. Representative Bove, 7th District. I just did a quick run-through. It looks like out of 9, there's only 3 that are parents. So I feel like
No,
might
I
be
think
okay.
it was 6.
You can- Representative Vergara?
Yeah, no, I did the tally. It was 6 of the parents have connections to the school as parents. 1 was not a current parent. I think 5 are current parents, and 1 is a former parent.
Further discussion from our members? Representative Burcham?
Carrie Burcham, District 8. For Mr. Quinn, as a newer member and a parent of a Riverfield person, thank you, because I thought it was great. I think that this is potentially a thankless job, and I thank all of the volunteers for it. I would say that I think that the issue is really relates to the charge, not the individuals, so thank you all for showing up. And I would like to see the charge when it's more formally done.
Right, just remember, everyone, we don't vote on the charge. We only vote on
But I think that
individual
that's the
members.
bigger issue. So long as they all are comfortable with the charge when it comes down the pike.
Further comments or discussion from our members? Representative Iacono?
First of all, Mr. Moderator, through you to the candidates that appeared, I'd advise that you all be here on Monday. It sounds that there's some consternation about who's going to be appointed to the committee, so even though perhaps normally it's our normal form not to have to appear twice, maybe Monday might be an issue. I don't know. I'm just hearing some consternation from some other members. Additionally, if there are problems, I suggest that we invite the first selectman to be at the meeting, as he usually is, and to explain his thoughts on the process and the fact that, to my knowledge, all of these members were nominated and appointed at the Board of Selectmen unanimously. Third, having been involved in many of these different things and been involved in the past on recruitment efforts, it is next to near impossible to get volunteers to step forward and be a part of the process. I understand the concern about having too many parents and maybe individuals who might be pushing for certain things, but to blanket judge whether or not someone's going to have a vested interest just because they have a child at the school, I don't know is necessarily the path that we want to go down to. And quite frankly, who better to serve on a committee than the person that lives in that area? They know what their neighborhood wants. They know what their neighbors want. They know they're completely in tune with what's going on around them. Yes, it's excellent to have professional experience, and we have a wide variety on that. We have architects, we've got people who've served on building committees, we have parents, we have attorneys, we have a wide, I think the Board of Selectmen personally did a good job going out and looking for different skill sets. And I know there's a lot of discussion about where Mill Hill should be, but at the end of the day, these people are going to get a charge, and their job is to follow the charge. And what we really ought to be looking for are qualified individuals who can follow that charge. But to that, and to be fair to the candidates who are involved, I do request specifically that the first selectman be present to address how and why these candidates were all unanimously appointed.
I'm just going to make a request to committee chairs. If your committee feels strongly that the proposed appointments to the Mill Hill Building Committee be here on Monday the 25th, let me know, and then we'll reach out to them and tell them to come. Further comments and discussion? Representative Smay? Use the microphone, please.
Ruth Smay, District 5. The selectman will not be here. He's going to be on his honeymoon.
So?
Well, perhaps he can send a memo explaining what the position of the Board of Selectmen was.
Further discussion? Representative Gerber?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, obviously, the candidates look fantastic. It has nothing to do with the candidates. But there is, you know, in government, I think you want to try to avoid, you know, where you can, moral hazards. And, you know, you're in a neighborhood, you're going to be getting emails from parents saying, we don't like this idea, we don't like that. And I think it's just a bad control in government to have, to have too many a majority of people on the committee that are parents, because they're going to be in a situation, even with the best of intentions, they may be put into a situation that is unfair to them. So I would request, absolutely, I would request, at least I would like to know, was this the universe of candidates? If not, if it was, then I agree with Representative Iacono. You put your feelers out. You do the best you possibly can. If there were additional candidates that were not selected, I think I'd like some explanation as to how we ended up here, because as far as I know, we've never ended up in this situation before. So something has changed, it seems, with this particular committee, and to some extent the Sherman Committee as well. Although, like I said, I wasn't concerned about that so much because it was a very limited scope.
Okay. If there are specific questions that anyone has for the First Selectman's Office, or if there's a request for particular content in a memo from the First Selectman's Office, I just would ask that people make that request in writing through me, and I'll submit it to the First Selectman's Office. Further discussion on the committee as a whole? I'm going to ask them. Okay, seeing none, there was a gentleman that walked in during our discussion in the second row. Are you here on, what's your name, sir? Okay, can you please come forward? Thanks. Yeah, just please be seated and just introduce yourself to the body. We've gone through the other proposed appointments to the committee.
All right. Yeah, no, my name is Hector Guillen. I'm a registered architect. I practice in New York City and, well, basically the tri-state area. I'm a resident of Mill Hill. I'm on Mill Hill Terrace, and my daughter is currently a student. She's at 5th grade. She's moving up, and I'm just basically interested on the project in terms of the. I think there's an opportunity to basically do something that is right for both for the neighborhood and also for Fairfield, and especially for the kids.
Thank you. Any questions for this appointment? Seeing none, thanks for coming. We'll let you know if you have to appear on Monday. It seems probably not, but we'll let you know after tonight's discussion later on.
Okay.
Thanks. We'll now move on to the assessor's report on tax relief for the elderly and disabled homeowners program. So I understand the assessor has made an update to his report. He has 20 copies with him tonight. He's going to email me a copy of the report, so of the update. I'll disseminate to the entire body. But
Want me to hand some of the updates out, spread them
do
around?
people want copies of the update? Yeah, added some more information.
Yeah.
Something that's mentioned, not.
Do you want it? I think I want to have you on one side.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a few down
I
there.
think that there's.
It's updated though somehow.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, good. Okay, because I can print that out.
Okay.
Well, he added the circuit breaker
Okay.
program. And he
Ross, can you
also
just
added,
tell people what changed in the report?
The changes were on the second page in the 5-year history. I added the history of the state program and how that's changed and what the cost was. So you'll see that on the third page, the lower section, the last 4 lines were added.
Okay. So it's up to you on
Okay.
whether you want to
Right.
go into any of the written material you provided to us, or just open it up to questions, whatever you want.
Do you want me to, you can just fire away if you want. And by the way, Ross Murray, I'm the assessor for Fairfield, been here about a year. This is my second trip for this report.
And I think this is probably the first time you've been before this body.
Second
Aside
time.
from budget. Did you came last
I
year?
did the RTM report, this
You did it
report last year,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, just
Right.
started.
So we'll open it up to questions. Do people have questions? Representative Ambrose?
Peter Ambrose, District 1. Can you just give us an overview of your thoughts on the changes?
Yeah, I can run through a couple of the highlights, if you want to call them highlights. We had a decrease. I think that's probably the biggest news. The total program decreased by 95 people this year. The three leading areas were people that passed away, were 62 people. 55 people sold their house and are no longer eligible, obviously. And the other area, which was the largest increase, was over income. So there was 53 people that exceeded the income allotment, top income, and were removed from the program. So that was the biggest change there. So overall, the program is down by $226,302 overall. The credit program's down $217,023, and the deferral program, which only has 7 people in it, was the cost is down to $29,819. There's no change in the freeze program. We didn't have anybody in it last year, and no one selected it again this year.
Further questions? Representative Lopez?
Hi, Erin Lopez, District 2. Could you just explain what your feelings are on nobody choosing freeze as an option? Is that the requirements, or is it just something that's kind of gone out of favor?
It's an unattractive option. You can only remain in it for 6 years. So the credit program, you go on that and you get your benefit, typically several $1,000s right off your tax bill first time. The freeze, you only get it as your taxes increase over the years, and then again you have to come off it in 6 years. So you're not going to make up that difference in the credit in 6 years. So it's just not an attractive option.
Further questions? Representative Vergara?
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. Hi, Ross.
Hi.
So I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to something that Ross said about there being 95 less participants this year, and that's a huge decrease. If you look at the chart in the 5-year history, it's one of the steepest declines. So last year it was only 39, and then the year before it was 67. But if you go back even farther, it's considerable, because when they amended the ordinance, I think that what prompted them to amend was that there was a decrease of 38 in fiscal year 2012 and then 42 in fiscal year 2013. Once they amended, the program started gaining participants. So the next year it was 33 additional, and the year after that it was 1 additional. So I feel like this drop definitely warrants more revisions. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
Further discussion? Representative Smay. Representative Smay, please use the microphone. I know we don't have that many.
We do.
Yeah, except over here we've got.
Share this.
These people talk a lot. On eBay.
Representative Smay, District 5, you did say 62 people died.
Yes.
Well, we can't stop dying. I mean.
No, but there was a large increase.
They died in other years, too.
Right. But the largest increase in the group that left the program were the over income. I mean, we typically see the same number of souls and death. That's kind of steady.
Further discussion? Representative Newman, then Representative Vergara.
Eric Newman, District 2. So it's 53 people have increase of income. It's a phenomenal economy. Does that have a play into these numbers? 53 people the income was over the limit, right?
Right.
So pension funds are doing well, 401ks, IRAs. You got to take out that money. It's a good economy. A couple years ago, when it was an awful economy, we implemented, the deferral program. You got to look at the history. Go back to 2008, the early years, then bring the data. Is there a higher people you need the program then than now. People, you know.
Yeah, I don't have the data going that far back. I have it
So
probably
something-
another
something
5,
to
6
look
years
at.
back.
Something to look at, just to do comparisons of when we're in a bad time, these programs help. When we're good economy, people are doing very well, you know.
Representative Vergara?
Yeah, I wanted to address Representative Smay's comment. One noticeable difference, though, from past years, the number of deaths has pretty much remained constant year to year, but it is significant that there are more people who were removed due to excess income this year. In other years, if you look at the chart again from Ross, you can see in that 5-year chart, or no, actually, it's the consolidated one where it's the assessor's report to the RTM with all the, it's the chart. It gives a breakdown, and it shows that this is the most we've lost for excess income in 5 years. And I think that if you go back even farther, you'll see that I don't think that we've ever lost this many applicants for excess income before, so it's significant to me.
Further discussion? Seeing none, thanks for Representative Iacona.
Pam Iacona, District 8. I don't think I said that all night. Sorry, totally forgot. What's the number one reason people don't apply? Like when they come into
They-
your
they
office and
realize that
when they
they
come in
don't
and they ask
qualify.
about, I mean, to state the obvious, I'm sorry.
They realize that they don't qualify.
And how much are they missing the mark by? I mean, are they off by a few thousand? Are they off by
We don't know.
10,000?
You know, a lot of people will call up or just stop in, they'll ask what the criteria are, and they'll say, oh, I'm not going to qualify. So we don't get their tax return, we don't know what their complete situation is. We just know that they've told us they're over, they have too much assets because there's the asset test, they're over income, and they just don't apply. So those people we don't have data on.
Gotcha. And then the money that, and I know that the money that we don't end up having to expend, we budget money for this. And the money that we don't expend then goes to where? The general fund? Is that?
That would be a question for finance.
Okay. Have there been discussions on just getting rid of allowing everyone of a certain age of applying for a tax credit regardless of income? Some type of sliding scale, or have you worked in
I think-
municipalities that have that type of system?
I have not worked for a municipality that has you're 65, you get a benefit, no. But that's, you know, I'm working with the Tax Relief Committee, and that has been brought up as a possible option.
Are there other municipalities in Connecticut that do that? Do you know of any that do, or?
There are, I don't know if I could name them offhand, I believe Reading is one of them. They give a flat amount, but they have no other options. You get the benefit and that's it, there's nothing else offered.
Gotcha. And that's done on a sliding scale, or no, you're
It's a
you're
flat amount.
65, you
You're
get
65, you get
$5,000, you
or
get
$1,000,
$500,000, whatever. Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion or questions? Representative Vergara?
Just to address Representative Iacono's question, Ridgefield also offers that program. And I think that it's Reading that the numbers are coming to my head, that they actually offer, it's a healthy credit, homestead credit. They are offering $2,000 to all of their seniors.
Further discussion?
Yeah.
Representative Gale?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to familiarize myself with the program. So basically, there are 3 programs offered, but people only ever really apply for the credit.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, so, and the income, or the asset level is pretty reasonable. It's what I saw is the total assets doesn't even include their primary residence.
Right, we don't see too many people get denied for being over the asset limit.
Okay.
It's a pretty small number, I think it's, 5 or 6.
Okay.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
4.
Seeing none, Thanks for coming, Ross. You don't have to appear on Monday, but do send me that report
I'll
by
send
email.
that out to you tomorrow.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have the NAA program applications. Good evening.
Good evening. Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. It's one of my annual pilgrimages here to talk to you about the Neighborhood Assistance Act program. For those of you not familiar with the program, it's a state program that provides a tax credit to corporations owing a state corporate tax liability to those corporations that make a charitable gift or donation to approved nonprofit or municipal agencies under this program. There are two conditions basically that we need to satisfy. We need to, a couple. We need to solicit applications, conduct a public hearing, which we've already done, and designate a municipal liaison and submit our list of approved municipal agencies applications to the Department of Revenue Services by July 2nd, July 1st, but July 2nd this year. Happy to entertain any questions. A list of those that had applied meet the criteria is attached, provided to you. Many of these are organizations that have applied previously. There's 2 tax credits available to those corporations that make the charitable gift. One is the most common is a 60% tax credit, which is for most program categories. There is a dollar-for-dollar tax credit available theoretically for those donations to support energy conservation measures. I say theoretically because the state caps the amount of tax credits available statewide, and if they're oversubscribed, which they have been last few years, they reduce the tax credits available commensurately. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Representative Iacono.
Thank you, Mark, for being here. How many people applied that did not get assistance? Like, how many people did you have to turn down?
None.
None. So everybody who applied made
Yes,
it.
everyone that applies within the timeline, within the deadline that's prescribed, we present to you for your consideration.
Gotcha. And then, do they get the full amount of what they're looking for? Like, how does that work? How do you
Typically,
decide?
no.
Okay.
I should mention there are no town funds involved, and
Right.
assistance is not guaranteed by any stretch. Basically, this provides a mechanism by which they could solicit charitable gifts from corporations that have a state corporate tax liability. There are a number of companies locally, regionally that contribute to the program. Bigelow Tea, Santa Fuel, Newman's Own, for example. But most people, you see here numbers like people are asking for $75,000, $150,000. They get nowhere close to that. We typically see charitable gifts in the range of $40,000 to $50,000 for all the programs each year. And from my standpoint, it's $40,000 to $50,000 they wouldn't otherwise necessarily have. So,
Thank you.
Further discussion? Questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Program Year 44 Community Development Block Grant.
okay. Again, this is a federal program, the Community Development Block Grant. The town of Fairfield has been a participant for many years, probably since its inception. We receive federal funds through the Department of Housing and Urban Development each year. Fairfield is an entitlement community, meaning by virtue of its size and population, it receives an annual allotment of Community Development Block Grant funds. For our use, we have to basically ensure that programs that we're funding meet a national objective and are eligible for receipt of funding. Otherwise, communities generally have some discretion as to how to allocate those funds, meeting priorities that are set forth in their 5-year plan. We did, again, solicit applications, as we usually do, conduct a couple public hearings. The allocation plan was presented to the Board of Selectmen and passed unanimously for your consideration. Most of these organizations have been previous recipients of funding under the program. many organizations, nonprofits, for example, fall under the public service activity category, and we're only allowed to allocate up to 15% of the total grant towards those types of public service related activities, and 20% towards general program administrative costs. And then the rest kind of fall into those two other buckets, affordable housing and public facilities. So again, most of these programs have received funding in years past, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Representative Iacono?
Same question as earlier. Did you have to turn down any applicants?
We did not turn down any applications. We're presenting all for your consideration. There are a number of new organizations presented for your consideration this year. Those include our Fairfield Human Services Department, which is seeking funding for a senior outreach, part-time senior outreach coordinator. Bridge House, which is looking for assistance to provide Fairfield residents with developmental and mental health issues with life skills development. The Pilot House, which is looking to start a support initiative for veterans and developmentally disabled young adults. And Wolfgang was a retail shop here, but they provide services to, again, developmentally disabled young adults. And they're looking for funding to fund a part-time volunteer coordinator.
And then, I should know all of this, and I'm sorry, I'm having a total brain freeze. I don't know if it's the heat or what. So, we were already allocated the money, or you need this approval, then we go to the feds, and they come back and say you get X number of dollars?
So, no, this year we actually know how much money we're going to get.
Okay.
That's not always the case, but this
Okay.
year we do have a funding commitment from HUD.
Okay.
Based upon your review and hopefully your approval of this allocation plan, we will then prepare an annual action plan which provides further information about these activities and relates them back to the priorities identified in our 5-year consolidated plan, and addresses other issues from HUD, and that has to be prepared and submitted to HUD 45 days before the program year begins, which is mid-August. So the federal fiscal year begins October 1st. Once we submit that plan, assuming it meets with their HUD's approval, we'll get a release of funds so we can then commit those to these organizations that you have selected.
Who makes the ultimate decision as to what moves forward to the Board of Selectmen and in what amount? Who do those applications go into, and how's that all decided?
We solicit applications, and again, within those broad categories of 15%.
When you say we, you mean the Economic Development Department.
Office of Community Economic Development. There's another individual, the grants coordinator, who provides the day-to-day administrative support and whose position is funded through the program administration line. And we review those applications and present a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and to this body.
Gotcha. And they come in with dollar amounts, or you have to assign the dollar amounts? Or
They come in with dollar requests, but as is the case with a lot of things, the requests far exceed the amount of money that we have available, so we generally try to make some judgment as to, again, looking at prior commitments, try to maintain funding where we can, and work in other requests as funds allow.
So that's the formula you use. You look at what you did before to see if you can continue with that contribution.
To some extent.
People.
Yes, and we also have to consider how it relates back to the priorities that we've identified in our 5-year plan, the needs and their past performance level in terms of satisfying those requirements, but also the availability of other funding to support their initiatives, because some of these organizations have much bigger budgets and a broader, more robust ability to fund these initiatives on their own outside of this support that we've received. I mean, all the funding here is relatively modest compared to the overall cost.
And then, am I remembering the conversation correctly about the elevator at the Fairfield Woods Library? Did it come up in discussion? Was it the CDBG that we were looking to possibly pursue money to fund?
That is, we can fund accessibility or improvements to public buildings to make them to eliminate barriers to accessibility, so an elevator potentially is eligible in a school building. We did have a project previously where we provided some funding to make some modifications to a school building for that purpose. So it is broadly eligible. We didn't receive a specific request or application. The one caveat I would say, or thing I would mention, is once we introduce any federal dollars into a project, all the other federal requirements have to be met. So if it's otherwise not subject to Davis-Bacon prevailing wage and other labor requirements, this would make it so. And so you have to weigh the potential benefits as well as the potential costs.
Gotcha. So you never received a application from
I didn't, and that doesn't necessarily.
Library Board of Directors to
No.
consider that? Because I remember Mrs. Devanzo was here and she mentioned that there were a lot of grants available for that types of thing. And I think she's the town treasurer, sits on the library board.
Again, we didn't receive an application, but it would be something that we could consider.
Okay. I just remembered that conversation. Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Lopez?
Hi, Erin Lopez, District 2. How are you? I just have a question regarding a couple of the things in here, such as human services and the DPW. Those are things that would normally be a part of our town budget. So how does this grant money, where does that kind of come into play in terms of our town budget?
This would be as a supplement to any town funds that might be provided for these initiatives or programs. Fairfield Human Services, as I mentioned, was looking for funding for a part-time senior outreach individual, a person that provides outreach to homebound seniors. And again, this would meet eligibility criteria for funding under CDBG, and it is definitely a priority need within our 5-year plan in terms of providing those types of services to our senior community. We have funded in the past many years some street or sidewalk improvements in income-eligible neighborhoods. There are census tracts that do meet the HUD criteria, and so we'll meet with the Department of Public Works, Mr. Bartlett, who's here, and review their priority needs and determine where we might be able to provide some assistance to help meet their requirements.
Further questions? Representative Iacono?
Thank you, Representative Lopez, for raising that. So DPW gets funding, but the funding specifically for this, you mentioned, is for income-eligible neighborhoods?
It would be census tracts that meet the requirement, yes.
What's the micro-enterprise assistance?
It's a small business assistance program, so microenterprise is under federal law described or defined as those business enterprises that employ 5 or fewer individuals. And again, we can provide a small grant pool, some grant funding to businesses to assist them with startup or to allow for expansion, so long as they again meet some broad income eligibility criteria. Either the individual starting the business is income eligible or the majority of the employees that they employ are income eligible.
Given the initiative of this town and the first selectman and all the conversations we seem to have about economic development, I just question, when we have a budget for paving and sidewalks, why we would put $75,000 there and only $10,000 to small businesses to encourage them to stay, grow, flourish. What's the thought process there?
Well, again, what we've found in past is that majority of business enterprises are not able to meet the criteria for federal funding, but to the extent to which we do receive applications above the allotment, we do have the ability to amend. They're typically amend our plan, if you will. There are projects or activities that don't go forward as quickly as possible, or perhaps don't fully expend their grant allotment, and so we're able to shift monies around if we have a program that's already been approved.
Do you have a copy of that? Could we take a look at what that microenterprise, what the
Sure, I'd be happy to send. I have a 1-page fact sheet that it provides that basically lays out the program, and that's typically what I provide for folks that are interested in learning more about it.
Great, thank you.
Mark, you can send that to me and I'll disseminate it to the body. Further comments or questions? Representative Gale?
I'm looking this, at the HUD criteria right now online, and, so it looks like it's intended to really expand, quality of life for low to moderate income communities in general, right? So there could be, as long as you were providing economic opportunity for a group of people within a lower income area of Fairfield, there's the possibility that you could actually create a teen business, for example, using funds like this if there was the will to do so.
There's a lot of things you can do theoretically,
done.
so without getting into too many of those situations, what we do need to do is demonstrate that we meet a national objective, which, as you mentioned, one of the national objectives is to demonstrate that we are benefiting persons or areas of low to moderate income. So there's that income eligibility criteria, and otherwise we have to then show that it meets the other eligibility criteria set forth in the federal statutes. So
Would a training program qualify?
training, again, there are a lot of things that we can use the funds for. They do have to relate back, ultimately, not only satisfy the federal requirements, but they also have to relate back to the priorities that we've identified in our 5-year planning process.
I see, okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none? Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the Yee Yacht Yard Restoration Funds.
Just there.
Good evening, Scott
Evening.
Bartlett, Superintendent of Public Works. I'm pinch hitting for Joe Michelangelo, who's on vacation. Basically, the Southport Conservancy approached the town a few years ago. They were going to do a fundraiser to see if they can get capital to restore the old historic yacht workshop. They have fully funded it. We went out to bid and have secured a contractor, and basically we think it's a great opportunity to restore this historic dwelling without tapping Fairfield taxpayer dollars.
Questions on this item? Representative Bertram?
This might be to you, as Carrie Bertram, District 8. I just didn't understand the resolution. It sort of suggests that it's to be received, the monies are to be received and to be funded by 2 donations. Have the monies been already received?
My understanding is that we have a commitment that the money's there. We put it out for bid, and the 2 numbers are the first number, the $37,000 and change, equals the bid price, and then there's a small amount of money for contingency if we ran into some trouble.
So it's really, the resolution's really provided that the town would be liable to pay up to $4,128.
Well, the Conservancy has committed to that. The Conservancy's commitment is for the full value of $42,000, but we didn't want to take the 42 and then have to reimburse them funding, so we matched the bid price, and the rest will stay in basically contingency. And if we only need, say, $3,000, they'll only pay $3,000, so we wouldn't have to take the full $4,000 for contingency. But they're willing to pay up to $42,000 for the entire project.
Scott, I think the question, are they paying directly, or are they reimbursing us for the costs that we expend?
I think they're paying directly.
Okay. Further questions? Seeing none, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the United Public Service Employees Union contract.
Good evening, Emmett Hibson, Director of Human Resources.
Good evening.
So before you, I have a request for approval of a contract for one of our collective bargaining agreements. It's the DPW union. Summarize it. It is a 6-year contract with effective dates of July 1/14 through June 30, 2020. We believe it's beneficial to the town from a financial and language perspective. From a financial perspective, we were able to keep the wages where we've been with the other bargaining units, and that's at 2% a year for each year of the contract. We've been able to make changes to the health plan both the plan design and the cost share, which helps us save money both on current actives and retirees. So for wages, as I said, it's a 6-year contract at 2%. The DPW wage scale, it's 6 steps. Steps 1 through 3 are based off of step 1 is when you come in, step 2, your first year anniversary, step 3 is your second year anniversary, step 4 is after 10 years, step 5 is after 15 years, and step 6 is after 20 years. The grade scale, grade 6, which is the lowest grade, step 1 will start, if approved, at $44,919 and caps at $50,775, so that's the lowest paid position we have. And grade 18, which is the highest paid position we have, starts at $68,779, and I'll cap at $79,458, and that's in July 1, 2018 dollars. Pension, individuals are effective July 1, we're in the July 113 are in the defined contribution plan, and there's 86 budgeted employees. 59 were hired prior to the cutoff date and are in the defined benefit plan, and 14 are currently in the defined contribution, and we have several openings that we are actively trying to fill. One of the things in keeping the salaries low, one of the reasons that was our objective, is that our defined benefit pension is based off of the salary, so the lower you keep the salary and the less growth in the salary, the lower the pensions will be. So for defined benefit employees, that was critical to our negotiation strategy. Healthcare is a plan change from that'll have a 4.1% reduction. The plan for this bargaining unit also affects most retirees, so that means we'll be changing the retirees' health plan consistent with this change. Additionally, there's cost share increase. Some retirees actually have the cost share increase going into effect for them also. So almost all retirees will be affected to some extent based off our health care changes. So that's essentially the main terms of the contract, main financial terms of the contract anyway, and then I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions from our members? Representative Bertram.
Carrie Bertram, District 8. Can you explain Section 802, just in terms of retroactive payment, 2% starting in 2014, 15, 16, 17? Somebody has been terminated, removed, quit, death?
So it's only effective for those that are currently employed. So if you have retired, you've terminated, if you've passed away, you will not be, your heirs or yourself will not be eligible for this payment.
And that you would, is that by labor law? It doesn't actually say that. Is that
Okay,
like a labor law thing?
We actually have a lawsuit on this right now, but there's been a decision by the Connecticut State Board of Labor Relations on this issue, and that it's a subject to bargaining, and absent there being an agreement indicating that specifically that retirees do, or people that have left do get paid. The law is, there's a case out of town of Hamden, that retirees are not eligible for the benefit.
So,
And
but arguably that case could be overturned on appeal. Why wouldn't you put this in the agreement? Is that a, why wouldn't you make it clear in the agreement?
Because we believe the law is clear on this, and we've never paid wages to anyone who's retired. So it's not that's not a new thing for Fairfield. The fact is, those wages have not been paid in the past. We do, as I said, we do have a nurse who's challenging that. She originally went to Wage and Hour. Wage and Hour dismissed her complaint. She brought it to Superior Court. Small claims. We removed the case to.
But is there any reason
small
for
claims, we removed it to Superior Court.
transparency or to be clear in the contract? Do you just wouldn't make that a contractual provision? Rather than letting someone complain and relying on case law? It's
I
really.
mean, in my mind, it's clear. It hasn't been in the contracts in the past. It's not in any of the other contracts. There's never been a claim for it. I have one claim that's happened since I've been here. One claim I've had, quite frankly, it's the only claim I've had since I've been practicing. So, could we add that language? It's language we can add, but it's not in this contract, and it wasn't proposed by us or the bargaining unit. So, if something that you'd like to see, I will make it a point of negotiations.
can talk about it at committee. I just think it's more clear if you're waiting for somebody to, you said that you didn't have anybody challenge it, then you said there was somebody that challenged it. I just think that it would be more clear if people know that they,
Well,
if
typically
you're
the law
employed, you
is the
get the
collective
retroactive payment. If you're not employed, you don't get it.
Yeah, typically the law is the bargaining agreement is only effective for active employees. It does not impact retirees. So the fact that the person, or people who have left, so non-employees, I should say. So for anyone who has left, they need to understand that they're not part of this collective bargaining agreement, so therefore they're not entitled to the benefits that are derived from the agreement.
Further questions or comments? Representative Heron?
Hi, Doreen Herron, District 9. Is there a timeline for retroactive pay in a contract or in general? I was just curious.
No.
So if this were not to be rejected, does the town have however long they want to pay that back pay?
Well, no, once the contract is, if the contract is ratified, it would become due on when it's ratified.
And is that specific to this contract, or it's usually how it is with?
Unless you negotiate something different, because the event had already passed, so it becomes a payment that's due. So.
Thank you.
Representative Durrell?
Hi, Alex Durrell, RTM3. Regarding, do we have any more of these like clawback contracts? I mean, 2014, I mean, just.
No, the last, so we have 2 open contracts currently. They both expired on July 1, or on June 30th, 2017. So we are close with one of the bargaining units that expired in 17.
Right.
And quite frankly, we're not close with
Okay,
one.
all right. Also, maybe following on Denise Herron's thing. If this goes through, Doreen, I apologize, Doreen. If it goes through, do they get, it basically comes to an 8.243 raise from those from 2014 to 2018. Do they just get a check for that amount, or how does that work? Because 1.02 times 1.02 times 1.02 times 1.02 is 8.243. Do they just get a rate? Hey, here's 8% of your salary, and then we base it on that.
So you go
in the
back and
future.
look for, based off of when they were hired,
Right.
based off of their steps, yes, they would get it from their hire date for whatever period they were there on July 1. So if you were there on July 1 of that year, then that raise would be effective to you. If not,
But
it
you
would
get like
be
a lump sum in addition.
a lump sum in
Okay.
addition to.
All right. You mentioned the steps. You've got basically 25 of 73 people at step 3, which is between 3 and 10 years. Is there going to be like a major step up into step 4 with these 25, or? I mean, that's over a third of the people that are in the steps. I assume the other 13 of the 86 are management.
The other 18 of the 36.
You have 73 people in your steps. You said you have 86 employees.
86 budgeted, sorry. I said we
Right.
have number of vacancies. So 73, right now we have 73 filled positions. We are
Okay.
actively searching for to fill certain positions. But we do have certain vacancies.
Right, but my question is, are those 25 that are between steps 3 to get to step 4, are they all like at 8 years, chomping at the bit to get to number 4, or are they at number 3?
I would say it's pretty spread
Evenly
out. We
distributed.
hire, looking at I was looking at it today, actually. We probably hire 3 to 4 a year. This past 2 years, we've hired a few more because, we've had a few more vacancies because we have people retire, but by and large, 3 to 4 a year seems to be about average. This year, we've hired 4, but we've had a couple people leave right away, so.
Okay. One last question, the combined health care, is that between the 86 budgeted, it comes out to almost, basically $24,989 per employee?
So we use for purposes of doing a budget and for doing analysis and collective bargaining, we have a company that does analysis based off of if everything was filled, and so they'll look at and use a number that would associate with a filled body. So that is for the 86. That's not for the number of people that are that are actually spending. So that number right now would be high for a total spend in the town of Fairfield. But for our purposes in negotiating a contract and coming through with what the potential exposure is to the town, we act as if all positions are filled, and quite frankly, that's
That's the way it is.
That's
but
the way it is. I mean,
right.
it would be imprudent to go based off
Mhm.
of.
So in the future, should we basically expect a $25,000 per year per town employee for insurance? Because that's what it is. And I know it's less with other previous contracts and all that, but, I mean, that's more than a minimum wage person makes in a full year, as well as what the cherished $15 minimum wage would make net, I would say. I'm not saying it's good, bad, but that's a lot of money.
I would say 25,000 is, for a family coverage, is what we're traditionally seeing.
Further questions? Representative Bertram?
One last question. If you could just help me with the back of the envelope math from the retroactive pay that will become payable and due, is it about 300 aggregate? 300,000? 350,000?
I don't know what the back pay is yet. We haven't calculated that number yet.
Can we get that for next week?
Yeah, I can get you that.
Further questions? Representative Iacono?
Pam Iacono, District 8. Thank you, Attorney Hudson. Thank you for the memo. It was incredibly helpful. I really appreciated getting it ahead of time. The last municipal contracts that this body adopted, ECC, right? Fire, have we done 3?
I was thinking you've done, well, we've done fire, ECC, nurses, and PETA in the last year. So we've adopted 4.
Fire,
So I'm
ECC,
thinking
nurses.
ECC was probably the most recent.
And
PETA,
what,
PETA was probably June of 17. Fire, I think, was August or September of 17. Nurses might have been November, December of 17. And ECC, I think, was sometime right around February, maybe of 18. That's my recollection. I could be off on that, but that's kind of what I remember for.
if you know it off the top of your head, and I'm not expecting you to, or if not, could you just send us a memo on what the salary increases were there? Were they roughly? I know fire.
All 2%, except for fire had 1 year at a 0.
Okay, that's what I was trying to. So fire took a 0, and then it got a 2 and a 2, or something like that.
Correct. I think 3-2. So I think they took, it was a 4-year I may be off on the duration, but I believe it was a 4-year contract with a 0 and 3-2. So
they took a 0. They were a 0-2-2-2 possibly.
correct.
And ECC, they were straight 2s.
Straight 2s.
And nurses were the same.
Correct.
And PETA, they did the same.
PETA was the
thing?
same also. That's been our targeted number, and I think I might have addressed this in one of the previous discussions, but if you'd look at, where the target is from the statewide and from what we see in the other surrounding communities, which is one of the statutory standards, the raises, quite frankly, are a little higher throughout the state, and regardless of whether it's collective bargaining or whether it's there's arbitration. So the option we have, as the board probably knows, or the body probably knows, is that if you don't accept this, we can go to arbitration. We can also go back to the table and negotiate, but arbitration is, if you look at, I think I put in the numbers in the memo, we're not seeing, municipalities are not at this point seeing favorable results in arbitration. If you go to, I should have numbered the memo, sorry, 4th page of the memo, it actually splits out. This CCM provides us this information on monthly, quite frankly, and so I had just gotten the May, maybe 2 weeks before this meeting. So you'll see that in 13, 2%, 14, 2%, and this is through negotiations, 15, 2%. Arbitrations had better results in 13, 14, and 15. Well, actually in 13 and 14 at 185 and 199. But in 15, they were 2.2, whereas the average for negotiations was 2.3. 16, the average negotiations is 2.32. Arbitrations is 2.31. And these aren't insignificant numbers. You got 128 contracts in 16 negotiated, 26 arbitrated, 17 arbitrated in 2017, 2.52, excuse me, and then in 18, there were 4 arbitrated at 2.33. So from everything we're seeing, from what you're seeing that's been placed out around there, the 2% was really a good number for us, or what we felt to be a good goal to get. If we were able to get that, as well as get some movement in healthcare, because we did have contracts previously that had effects on retirees, that we were doing, we were keeping the numbers where we needed to be.
Right. I think based on all that criteria, and it was really great that you put that in there, you can see how you ended up where you ended up, and it makes sense. My gripe as it continues to be, but hopefully it's coming to a close now. They got to ride the 11% for all this time, and now they get to reap the reward of the salary increase without having going back. But you did pretty good on the percentage coming up. I would have wanted to see it 16, but you got to 15.
Quite frankly, I think that was, we had wanted to see 16. We wanted to see a couple other things also, but it wasn't worth going to arbitration. And one of the reasons why, I think someone said, well, 14, it has been there. And quite frankly, this bargaining unit was looking at what was out there. Other towns have higher raises around, surrounding towns that are comparable, and the wages were something that we were pretty, that was one of our goals, was to keep it there, and that was worth a lot to the finance department to keep it at 2%. And one, because of not only the going forward, the incremental cost of compounding, but also the pension. When this bargaining unit doesn't have as many people, we're about a third that have already in defined contributions since 2013. So there's been pretty good turnover here. So to the extent that they can keep the wages low for the next few years and maybe get some of the older people to retire, then you start, you can deal with the current wage trend.
And I just had 2 final questions. One was, what took so long? What was the holdup on this contract?
They really wanted to go to arbitration. They were pushing, they thought they could do better in arbitration, in all honesty. So,
They wanted more on salary, they wanted more on, less on benefits?
Correct. They wanted more on salary, and they felt that, salary was generally the main driver.
Gotcha. And then you mentioned before, when you were speaking with Representative Durrell, which 2 expired in 17?
THEA, which we are close with THEA, and police, which I will tell you we are not close with.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Further questions? Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2. Thanks so much. It was a good memo. I just want to clarify a couple things for my notes. On the first page, I think Representative Durrell asked this, but I'm not sure I didn't register the answer. The 86 budgeted versus the 73 that you have under the ES steps. What's the difference there?
So 86 is budgeted numbers. So if you were to go and pull out a annual budget, the one that's been approved, there'll be 86 budgeted positions, 86 line items.
But there are only 73 actual.
73 current filled.
Okay.
We just, as I said, we're interviewing now. We're filling positions, but
Okay, but we are trying to fill the difference. Okay.
we are trying to fill positions.
Okay, and then the total combined healthcare of 2149058, is that at 100% or 85%? Is that?
That is the entire, that's combined. That's employee and employer.
Okay, thank you.
Same thing with the pension cost. That's employee, employer.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thanks for coming, and if you could send us that follow-up information via email to me, and I'll disseminate it to the body.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. Next, we have the Safe Discharge of Firearms Ordinance. Before Representative Lefkowitz and I walk over to the table, do people have follow-up questions? Everyone saw that there is a proposed joint amendment of, well, do you want to present on that? Sure. Well, do people have questions? We have a proposed joint amendment between Representative Varian and Representative Lefkowitz. Are there questions on the ordinance? Seeing none, we'll break up into our subcommittees. Oh, yes. Yes.
Nancy Lefkowitz, District 1. I just wanted to say thank you to Representative Iacono and the Republican caucus for being timely and thoughtful in their amendment, and we look forward to Representative Varian, if I may speak on his behalf. We look forward to presenting that proposal, that amendment, in the meeting next week. So thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll break up into our subcommittees. Find your committee chairs. Thanks.